Patriot Come Lately show. This is Stefan, your Patriot Come Lately, the voice of the Second American Revolution. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever or wherever you are listening. As someone who came to America to escape from the socialist nightmare, I am using this show to shake America awake. Join me in the next hour for constitutional conservative news and views, as well as the occasional guest. We have to rebuild that shining city on the hill by taking this great country back to the principles set forth by the founders. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Yes, here we go again. Another episode of Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your Patriot Come Lately. British by birth, American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. Wishing you another happy Tuesday. And we're going to be talking tonight about Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and beyond. What exactly can we expect? Of course, there'll be a couple of other news topics later in the show if we have time for that. But before I do that, first of all, say greetings to you from the great state of Connecticut. Yes, I'm back in Connecticut. I thought this was going to be my last week, but I'm going to get another couple of trips up here. Looking forward to that. It's a great place to come up here, in spite of all my jokes about it being liberal country. Surprisingly enough, where I'm working, we actually have some state legislators working, and they are young and they are conservative. They are Republican, so that's always good news. And think a little closer to election time, try and get them on the show sometime for an interview. But anyway, on with the show. And as I said, we want to talk about Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and beyond. And I want to start with the beyond, because one thing that I would like to remind my listeners about, and I think this is one thing that we forget a little bit as we go through all the stresses and all the excitement and all the adrenaline of primary season. It is just that. It is the primary season. And this means it is okay to support one candidate over another, and to be vocal about it as well. Why not? Of course, we have to be careful that we're not forming a circular firing squad and providing the ammunition to the opposition with ammunition to finish off the execution. So while we can be vocal about candidates, I think it's much better to be positively vocal and not to give the opposition ammunition about the ones with which you don't agree. But anyway, so back to being vocal about your chosen candidate. Be so in the primary. But please, 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 once the final candidate is chosen, if it's not your candidate, please accept the will of the rest of the Republicans. Don't pick up your ball and go home. Instead, you must be prepared to invest all the energy that you devoted to your favorite candidate to whoever will represent us in the general election. Because our mantra must be ABC or S. In other words, anyone but Clinton or Sanders. So if the final candidate is not conservative enough, in your opinion, is not Christian enough, in your opinion, is too loud and brash, in your opinion, has flip-flopped too often, and then you decide not to go out and vote for them because you want to be principled, you will ensure that Clinton or Sanders will take over the White House. And worse, by staying home, the legislators at federal, state, and district level will also lose your much-needed votes. What could be the result? Can you imagine Hillyer in the White House and Princess Pelosi regaining the Speaker's gavel? Or Dingy Harry being allowed again to decide what is voted on by the Senate? Or whoever takes over from him, because of course he is retiring at the end of the session. So, I agree. Vote on principle. Vote on principle in the primary. But please start preparing yourself that if your candidate does not make it, you really must be ready to vote for whoever is selected to represent the Republicans. And think about it, folks, because according to many commentators, one of the major reasons that Romney did not win was because many evangelicals could not bring themselves to vote for him because he was a Mormon and not what they see as a true Christian. Folks, think about it. Because you wouldn't vote for someone who was supposedly not Christian enough for you, we got another 4 years of the most secular, the most anti-Christian government that this country has ever seen. And I'm afraid I lay the blame for that. I agree with the commentators. You look at the numbers, that was a major contribution to Romney's failure to win. He had other things that weren't good, but if the evangelicals had come out and supported him, he might have squeaked through. So I lay the blame at their feet, and especially the blame for all this anti-Christian stuff that's going on now, because you empowered the left by not voting. And I sincerely hope that all those, and you see a lot of rhetoric on the internet about this candidate, that candidate, this one flip-flops, that one's not Christian enough, that one's too loud and brash, how could we ever vote for someone like that? Agreed in the primary, but once whoever it is has won that position of being the Republican candidate, there's no way we can afford another 4 or 8 years of Obama II in the form of Clinton, or even a socialist like Sanders. It would be a disaster for this country. So, I've said my piece on that, and just think about that, folks. I'm going to talk about Iowa. We know we've got New Hampshire, South Carolina, and other primaries coming up, and they are important because we do have to choose our candidate, and we have to choose the best candidate to beat Hillary. But just because you think someone is not a good enough candidate to beat Hillary, and when that person gets chosen and then you stay home, then you are proving that they're not good enough to beat Hillary, not because they weren't good enough to beat Hillary, but because you were too weak to go out and support the right kind of person. And whether they're a true conservative, whether they're a born-again conservative, whether they're a true Christian, whether they're not a Christian, it doesn't matter. As long as they are Republican, at that point, for the general election, this isn't a question of voting on principle. This is a question of voting to save the country, and you have to do it. And I'm going to come back with this message as we get deeper into the primary elections, to remind folks, and as we get closer to the general election, this will definitely be one of my themes, to remind folks, please remember that we really need a Republican in the White House. And we need you to get out to the polls, not just to vote for whoever's selected, but also to vote for all the other Republicans that are going to be on those pieces of paper that you take to the polling booth, right? The federal level, the state level, the district level, the school level, all those positions, we need to get the progressives out. The progressives are ruining this country. They may be doing it with the best of intentions, but they are not right for this country. And we need to get the right people in there, not just at the top, but all levels going down. Okay, so I think it's time for a slight change of topic. So, folks, and now let's look what happened last night in Iowa and the way the lamestream media, the lying state media, is reacting. Ted Cruz won. Kudos to him. He got the most votes. All of a sudden, the LSM is screaming about the unexpected upset. Unexpected upset. Ted and Donald had been trading places in the polls for the last couple of weeks. And even though Donald, maybe in the last 10 days, was ahead most of the time it was in the margin of error, right? We knew it was going to be close. So why is it that much of a surprise? It's not that much of a surprise. They're saying it's that much of a surprise because they want it to be that. They want to magnify this fact that Ted won it and make it more than it really is. Now, and when I talk about the lamestream media, it isn't the usual crew. It includes Fox News Channel. I don't know if you've watched recently, but I have been watching them a lot. I watch Fox News a lot. They used to be fair and balanced. But because they had this very obvious bias against Donald Trump, for whatever reason, I started watching CNN again after many, many years. And I was surprised to find that while they do have this kind of little bit of a left-wing flavor to them, which, I was expecting, but I was expecting it to be a lot stronger, and they seem to be a lot fairer. I was surprised. So Fox News Channel, get your act together, right? Now, as I said, Ted did well, and he should have, because he's been pounding the cornfields there for over a year. So, kudos to him. But has he paid enough attention to the other states? Has he really focused on Iowa to sort of get that first victory and hope that it'll carry him through, give him momentum? It might not. Remember, the person that won Iowa over the last few years is not someone who ended up being the Republican nominee. And so if he didn't pay enough attention to the other states, have the other candidates, especially the Donald, have they spread their time over a broader range of states, not done so well in Iowa, but will that help them as they move forward? So let's look at the result. Yes, Ted won, but was he that far ahead of Trump and Rubio? As many have said, big winner. Looking at the polling, for weeks, Rubio was a significant number of points behind Trump and Cruz, and now he was up close. So if anybody did well, it was Rubio. How much of that, though, was due to some other things, which I will come back to after some other topics, after the break. But before we go to break, one last question. Do you think, did Trump lose because of a poor ground game? Did he do flashy events and large meetings with thousands of people, but not have a weak machine? Or was perhaps this loss due to skipping the debate? Or were there other reasons why Ted Cruz came out up front? Well, in a moment after the break, like I say, I've got some other topics, and one of them does touch on that. And very quickly, before we go to break, just a reminder, hi to folks in the chat room. I see Paul, Mary, and Edward, or better known as Rex, are very regular listeners are there. If you're listening live, and unfortunately I can't see how many live listeners there are now, but go to the chat room in the Spreaker box there. There's a little voice bubble. Click on that, and that'll take you to the chat room. You find lots of interesting chat going on, and you can answer some of the questions that I just posed you in my little soliloquy there. I would also say, if you're listening to one of the recordings, and most of my listeners actually do listen to the recordings, not to the live show, then email me at stefan@patrickcomelately.us and let me know the answers, or if you've got other comments, or if you've got questions, send them to me. Love to hear from my listeners. I like to know that I'm not talking into a black hole there. Okay, folks, it's time to take, and I'm actually a little bit late for a commercial break, so have to pay the rent here. And for new listeners, just a reminder, if you're interested in any of these services, please use the 800 number in the commercial. It helps support this show.
You can lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or more with Maximum Slim's first ever rapid weight loss guarantee. Today, you get Maximum Slim, an advanced fat and carb blocker, absolutely risk-free. The all-natural ingredients in Maximum Slim are a powerful weight loss combination. The Maximum Slim formula turns your body into a fat-burning furnace that supercharges your weight loss. Advanced fat and carb blocker stops the breakdown of sugar so your body doesn't store it as fat. Today, you'll get both of these products absolutely risk-free with no obligation. Only pay shipping. There are no expensive meal plans or exhausting DVDs. Just take Maximum Slim twice a day. It's fast, simple, and now it's guaranteed. Look, you can start losing weight today or not. Go back to your high school days and wear your favorite jeans again. Guaranteed. Call now and get both weight loss formulas free. Call 800-451-0228. 800-451-0228. That's 800-451-0228.
Doc, you gotta give it to me straight.
All right.
'Cause I'm dying here. I mean, take a look at this letter from the IRS.
Oh, my.
This is killing me, Doc. I tell you, it's killing me.
Cheer up, my friend.
Huh?
The tax doctor is here. My diagnosis tells me that you're going to be just fine.
Really?
The tax doctor will not rest until we find you the best possible tax settlement.
Really, Doc?
Guaranteed.
If the IRS claims you owe them $10,000 or more in business or personal back taxes, call a tax doctor right now. We could save you up to 75% if you qualify. Guaranteed or you pay nothing. Call right now for free details.
800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. That's 800-917-8546.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thanks for sticking with me through that break. As mentioned, those commercials help support the show. If you use the 800 numbers there, I don't get any money in advance, only when people call. Now, we're talking about the Iowa results right now, and talked about, what I think about the top, but of course an important thing is, what about the people at the bottom of the list? Now, we already know that on the Democrat side, Malloy is out, and on the Republican side, Huckabee announced that he is out and he's not going to be endorsing anyone either, in spite of rumors that he might mention Trump. But this is just the beginning, folks. We have to lose a few more people. When are the rest of the pack going to see the writing on the wall? Will it be after New Hampshire? Or will some even keep hanging on and fighting hard to stay in until after South Carolina? Right now, anybody under 5% in yesterday's votes is in the danger zone, which basically means everybody except the top three that we've already talked about, and Ben Carson. I think Ben Carson scored about 9%, but everybody else was under 5%. How can you justify, well, okay, you can justify, this is the first primary, it's a caucus, it's kind of a different thing, so I agree. You can maybe justify staying in. But after New Hampshire, where it's a true kind of primary, and you're down in the 5% range, do you really have any hope of going anywhere in the future? I wonder. But, that's up to folks to think about. And, well, I mentioned Ben Carson sort of just being one of the few above 5%. There was one thing that went on that seems to be a dirty trick to steal votes from him, because apparently what happened at a number of the caucus events around the state, it was falsely announced that Ben Carson had suspended his campaign. Apparently, and I haven't been able to ascertain the veracity of this, even Representative Steve King, who has endorsed Ted Cruz, sent out a tweet saying that. Interesting. Accidental? Deliberate? I don't know. Was it really done by the Ted Cruz campaign? Or was it some outsider trying to mess things up? Of course, Ted Cruz was probably the big winner on that. How much of his lead over Trump was due to the fact that people thought that Carson was out? Because I think a lot of Carson voters would naturally gravitate towards Ted Cruz, more than a Trump, obviously. Or, if not Cruz, then Marco. And who rose a whole pile unexpectedly in the polls? Marco. So, was the Ted Cruz campaign behind it? And if so, who's getting fired? Has anybody been fired? Has anything other than an apology, which makes Ted Cruz look more and more like an establishment politician because they think they can apologize and get away with everything? And another question, if it was his campaign, did he know about it in advance? I hope not. I hope that he's not stooping to such tactics, to such unethical tactics. Because basically, for someone who seems to have become a born-again Christian in the last few weeks, I'm not sure that this tactics aligns with Christian ethics. So, is his apology enough? Does it ring true? Or does it just sound like another politician apologizing for being caught? I don't know. I may be a little hard there, but we'll see. And as Mary says rightly, in the chat room, by the way, folks, so remember, if you're listening live, join us there. It doesn't matter. The damage was done. Mary, you're 100% right. You can't take it back, other than redoing the caucuses, and they'll never do that. But whoever was responsible, the damage was done. But I think it is fair for the American people to know who did it, how they were held accountable, and how many people knew about it. I mean, we have to have an FBI investigation, maybe not an FBI investigation, but somebody, and I would like to think that Ted Cruz is ethical enough to carry it out very transparently, have it carried out in his own organization, and I say very deliberately, having it carried out, not carry it out, but having it carried out, bringing in someone from outside to find out what happened, who said it, when they said it, how they said it, how it got out, and then deciding whether or not, but then deciding what action should be taken, which somewhere along the line, someone needs to be held accountable. If not, Ted Cruz, you are just another politician. Okay, folks, so that's Iowa and beyond on the Republican side. I also want to talk a little bit about the Democrat side, because of course the lamestream media on the one hand were crowing about how unexpectedly well Ted did, and as I said, I don't think it was that much of a surprise. We knew it was going to be close, and we'll see how the next few states go. Because the other big surprise was that after months of being fairly far behind, our dear friend Bernie Sanders managed to catch up with Hillary. And so much so that at the end of the evening, he had won 2 more precincts than Hillary, but there were 6 precincts which were tied. And so what they ended up doing apparently was flipping a coin. Well, I wish I'd been in Iowa yesterday and could have asked Hillary to buy me a lottery ticket, because they flipped a coin and 6 times it came up as called for Hillary. 1 in 64 chance of doing that. Well, I'd like those odds when buying a lottery ticket. So, what are the odds? But it's possible. It's possible. What's stranger for me is that there are some recorded instances where it seems that the fact that a particular caucus group had tied between Sanders and Hillary was not totally above board. But of course, Hillary had to win whatever the cost. Remember, that's the way the Clinton machine operates. And don't forget, a lot of these caucuses are being run by the local Democrat organization, and in many cases, the local Democrat organization is the Clinton/Obama organization, fully vested in keeping the status quo. Yeah. Rex says, someone tell Ben about those Las Vegas 2-headed coins. Yeah, you're right. Anyway, so what does it actually mean? So, of course, like I said, the press, Hillary won. I think they should have just taken, apparently there were 44 delegates up for availability. Now they're saying that Hillary won 22 and he won 21 because he was a tenth of a percent behind. Well, what happened to that 44th delegate? Why shouldn't that be awarded? And that should be awarded to who? Sanders, of course. They should both get the same number of delegates. Okay, she won with 2/10 or 3/10 of a percent officially, but just divide the delegates as closely as you can, and that would have been 22 each. But we can't do that. No, we've got to protect Hillary. Folks, That's unfortunate, but politics is corrupted again, and we can't trust things. Maybe we have to do away with the caucuses. Maybe we have to persuade Iowa that they have to go to a normal type primary, because this is really strange. Okay, folks, I see that we've already arrived at time for the next commercial break. So, folks, stick with me. I will be back after these messages.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
Every day, millions of Americans grow more concerned about the future of our great nation. The truth is, over the last century, a small but powerful collectivist movement known as progressivism has debased our politics, our culture, and our currency. We're just a small step from falling into 1,000 years of darkness, as Ronald Reagan warned. Friend, this is Pat Boone with an important free offer on a hot new book called The Great Withdrawal by Craig Smith and Lowell Ponte. This new book explains how we, the people, can end this fatal detour into big government and get back on the path of faith and freedom charted by our founders. Call now for a free copy of the hot new book called The Great Withdrawal.
Call now for your free copy. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. That's 800-978-3901.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS that you can't pay? Call now for immediate help. At the Tax Relief Line, we help people just like you. If you take on the IRS alone, you could be facing levies, liens, even wage garnishments, personal or business tax issues. If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS, call now and see if you can pay less. They can freeze your bank accounts, even garnish your wages. Call the Tax Relief Line now for immediate help. Our expert team of tax professionals will negotiate your tax problem and deal with the IRS for you. If the IRS is threatening you with levies, wage garnishments, or seizing your assets, call now and see if you can pay the IRS less.
888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043.
This is Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, keeping the spirit of America alive, a proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network. Okay, folks, sorry, missed the end of the commercial there. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, welcoming you into the second half of the show, and we're talking, just finishing up on the Iowa caucuses, and then looking towards New Hampshire, South Carolina, and beyond. And New Hampshire is going to be interesting. Because, of course, what will the lamestream media say if Donald does win? Of course, we know what they'll say if he doesn't win. Will he be able to hold on to that commanding lead, or is the sudden surge from Marco going to unseat him, or are they going to declare Marco the winner because he comes surging up, but comes in second to Donald? Lots of questions there. And of course, New Hampshire on the Democrat side means that it's almost certain that Bernie Sanders is going to win there and win big. And in that case, then what about South Carolina? Because this is where everyone says this is where the Clinton machine will kick into high gear as soon as we get into the where there are a lot of minorities, then this is where the Clinton machine, the Clinton-Obama machine, if Obama is supporting her, this is where it'll kick into high gear and they will get the black and Latino voters out. Of course, it's very interesting talking about that. Think about it. The party, the supposed party of diversity, right, the Democrats, are being represented by an old white man and an old white woman. I mean, an old hippie, with due respect, Rex, I class you in that as well, but Sanders even more so, and then an old white woman. Why would the minorities vote for those when on the Republican side we have two Latinos in the top? We have at least one woman in there, admittedly white, but a lot younger. We've got one black, just so much more diversity, and yet they claim that the Republicans, are the racist party. Very, very, very strange. Anyway, so folks, next few weeks are going to be fun as we go to New Hampshire, South Carolina, and beyond. I know at the beginning of March we have, of course, the SEC elections, as they call them. I think it's the 1st of March this time round, which includes Georgia. So I'm looking forward to that. Be interesting to see what happens, and I think we're going to see a lot of interesting stuff. But one word of advice to your candidates, especially really aimed at the Republican candidates. Yes, it's good to point out differences, but try to find a way to point them out in a positive way. Yes, there are differences. Yes, your candidate may have done certain things differently in the past, but he's entitled to change your mind because none of you are blameless. All of you have changed your mind at some time. And there's a lot of them out there beating their chest, I never changed my mind. The only one, I think, who can possibly do that in a true sense is Rand Paul. He's the only one who's always said the same thing and always will say the same thing. And the other one that is just like that, I hate to say it, but is Bernie Sanders. But everybody else has flip-flopped in one way or another. And so allow your your opposition to have made a different choice in the past and to have realized the folly of their mistake, but you can still point out why you are better than someone else rather than saying someone else is worse than you are. Think about it, folks. Okay. On to a new topic. And this is one that I really did have to bring in after, I think about 2 weeks ago. You may remember I talked about how embarrassed I was to have been British, to have a mother country who was debating actually whether or not they should allow Donald Trump into the country. Now, as it is, the vote came out and the vote did not pass, so Donald Trump is still able to visit the UK. I still wish that they would have voted to allow him not to go into the country, in spite of all the work and economy that he brings there because of his golf courses up in the Aberdeen area. But it would have been even sweeter if they'd done that and then he became president. What a egg on the face for them. But anyway, there is some good news from Britain. A number of weeks ago, a Daesh commander was vaporized by a United States Reaper drone as he sat unsuspectingly in his home in Raqqa in Syria with a number of his Daesh jihadist buddies. How that happened is a great story. And why is it good news from Britain? Well, according to the UK newspaper, The Express, British SAS soldiers worked in conjunction with the US Air Force to pinpoint this commander's location, and in order to do so, they actually used Islamic traditions against the terror group. What they did, they got one of them, and I presume he was sort of darker skinned, to drive into the area in a Toyota pickup truck, and having 8 brave SAS soldiers decked out head to toe in female Muslim attire. Yes, they were in burqas, posing as wives of militants in the area. However, under their full black dresses were grenades, tactical rifles, and all sorts of special forces goodies. So, what they did, they drove into town, and they found out they were posing as wives of some jihadists, and drove around, found out where the commander was located, radioed the coordinates to an Air Force plane that was circling nearby, and that plane then directed the Reaper drone to launch a Hellfire missile into the building. And I wonder at that point, did they actually radio the coordinates, or were they actually painting it with a laser or whatever? Anyway, whichever way, it doesn't matter. The Hellfire missile hit the building and vaporized everybody inside the building. Now, of course, all the Daesh militants went on high alert immediately, because they thought, oh, someone must have told where the commander was. And the town went down into lockdown, according to a source. Gunmen were on the streets, stopping everyone, lining people up against the walls, and threatening to kill anyone who had helped the spies. Now, what spies? How did they know there were spies? Well, they must have guessed. Someone had ratted out on the commander. But anyway, so they came across these so-called women sitting in the back of the Toyota truck, and they tried to stop them. And what happened is these SAS soldiers lifted up their burqas, and all of a sudden there were these huge tactical rifles pointing at them, and they started shooting. The SAS jumped out of the vehicle, lifted up their burqas, and opened fire. It must have been a massive shock to the gunmen. One was killed instantly, and 2 others ran off. 2 others. Come on, SAS, that's bad shooting. But anyway, the firefight gave the SAS just enough time to break contact with the ISIS gunmen and escape. Shortly after the daring raid, rumors started swirling around town that the infidels had sent women to do their fighting rather than men. However, as we now know, it was actually 8 brave soldiers with far better training and much better equipment, and the result is that they struck a severe blow to Daesh in the area. It definitely takes a brave man to walk straight into the pits of hell like these soldiers did, especially knowing the consequences if they were caught. But it's awesome that they used Islam's own rituals to infiltrate the group and then wreak havoc. So my hat's off to those SAS guys. It could have gone very, very wrong, but it didn't. They did a great job. And so, as I said, a couple of weeks ago, I was rather disappointed in my country, but this, I had to share with you, this kind of balances out and shows that, on the other hand, we can stand strong with America, and I'm thankful for that. Okay, folks, it looks like it's time for the last commercial break here. So if you will stick with me, we will be back in just a moment.
The offer of a franchise can only be made through delivery of a franchise disclosure document. Imagine yourself being a leader in America's fastest growing demographic category. More than 10,000 people a day turn 65, and a large percentage are going to need a helping hand at home or in choosing the right assisted living community. Always Best Care is looking for people who've excelled at everything they've done, but they're seeking a new challenge. Always Best Care is one of the fastest growing companies in this explosive field. We're looking for 25 new franchisees to keep our booming business growing. We'll back you up with the strongest award-winning marketing program in the industry, and we'll provide the special training and support that's fueled our growth to prepare you for this great opportunity. All that's missing is you. Call Always Best Care toll-free at 1-800-643-7508. That's 1-800-643-7508. For Always Best Care, 1-800-643-7508. Call today.
Are you worried about losing your home to foreclosure? If you've been threatened with foreclosure or received legal papers from your bank, you have approximately 30 days to respond. If you do not respond, you could lose your home. You have rights. Act now to protect your rights. You can stay in your home. Many times you can even modify your loan. The bottom line is you can get past this, but you must act right now. Call National Foreclosure Defense right now at 800-296-3006, 800-296-3006. If you've been served by your bank and you're worried about losing your home to foreclosure, now is the time to fight back and save your home. Time is limited, so call right now. 800-296-3006, 800-296-3006. Call the professionals at National Foreclosure Defense right now. 800-296-3006.
If you're diabetic, this message could change your life. Is your blood sugar out of control even when you do all the right stuff? Are you afraid of diabetic blindness and the risk of amputation, as well as all those other side effects? Well, you should be. Is there anything that could help manage your blood sugar? Nobetes is a natural supplement that may quickly and dramatically lower your blood sugar.
My name is Bob Corder. I've been using Nobetes for about 3.5 to 4 months now, and in the first 3 months, I've actually lowered my blood sugars from 500s down to 139, and then it dropped to 88 to 93.
My name is Kirsten. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and while taking Nobetes, my blood sugar levels dropped from 295 to 115 in just 1 day.
The FDA hasn't evaluated these statements, and Nobetes isn't intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. But for many, it's helped drop their blood sugar. So if you've been evaluated with high blood sugar, don't delay. Evaluate Nobetes now. Call 800-551-8302 and get your free bottle. Just cover shipping and handling. Call 800-551-8302. That's 800-551-8302.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. Okay, folks, we're into the final segment of the show. I think the chat room got a little raunchy tonight, but some interesting discussions. But towards the end, got a little, just a little on the raunchy side. We're into the final segment of the show, and number of things I could talk about. I'm going to go with some Second Amendment news. First of all, here's a number of different reasons to fight for the Second Amendment. The first two concern some situations where a concealed carry holder or holders manage to basically defend people. The first one was in Chicago, yes, the gun capital of the world, the one with the most gun control and the most guns. Kind of oxymoron there, but anyway. In Chicago, two criminals entered a T-Mobile store armed with guns and attempted to rob the store after pretending to shop. They learned, however, that bullets can go both ways when a store employee pulled out his gun and opened fire. Both robbers fled from the hail of bullets rained down by the law-abiding citizen, but not before both were struck multiple times. Police took them into custody after they were rushed to the hospital. Both remain in serious condition. Neil Tadros, the T-Mobile store manager, was very appreciative of his employee that was carrying his gun. I think concealed carry is a great opportunity for managers, workers, and employees to protect themselves in these cases. And our employee did a great job to protect themselves and the other employee present, and possibly any other customers who might have been around at that point. Now, and recently in Columbia, South Carolina, a criminal was shot and killed by two people with legally concealed weapons during a foiled robbery Friday night. Two armed men wearing masks entered a barber and beauty store demanding money from the individuals inside, which included children. The criminals got a surprise when two individuals in the barber shop pulled out their legally concealed guns and opened fire on the thugs. One of the robbers collapsed outside of the barber shop from gunshot wounds and was pronounced dead at the hospital. Police are unsure of the second suspect's location or if he was injured from the hail of bullets that rained down on them. So my only comment to this, well, two comments. One, of course, it shows it takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun. But on the other hand, as well, kind of surprised that all those, they talk about a hail of bullets and the person not dying. If you shoot correctly, you're supposed to hit them so that they do not get up. But anyway, I wasn't there. I don't know how I would react in that situation, but let me just say I have taken to carrying my pistol more regularly now with everything going on in the world. I think we have to do that. But there are more reasons. Let me just quickly let you know about something else I picked up on the internet. A quote, Thomas Jefferson, the strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government. And why would we need to protect ourselves against tyranny in government? Well, here's some examples. In 1929, the Soviet Union established gun control. From 29 to 53, about 20 million dissidents, unable to defend themselves, were rounded up and exterminated. In 1911, Turkey established gun control. From 1915 to 1917, 1.5 million Armenians, unable to defend themselves, were rounded up and exterminated. Germany established gun control in 1938. From 39 to 45, 13 million Jews and others who were unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. China established gun control in 1935. From 48 to 52, 20 million political dissidents were rounded up and exterminated. Guatemala established gun control as recently as 1964. From 64 to 81, 100,000 Mayan Indians were rounded up and exterminated. Uganda established gun control in 1970. From 1971 to 79, 300,000 Christians, yes, were exterminated. Cambodia established gun control in 1957. And from 56, and from 1975 to 1977, 1 million educated people were unable to defend themselves and were exterminated. Well, folks, it looks like we have come to the end of the show. I see that the music is starting, so it's time to say TTFN, folks.
Imagine yourself being a
enjoyed
leader in
seeing everybody chatting in the chat room there. Please join me again next week for more, where we'll be looking at the results of New Hampshire.
Or in choosing the right assisted living community. Always Best Care is looking for people who've excelled at everything they've done, but they're seeking a new challenge. Always Best Care is one of the fastest growing companies in this explosive field. We're looking for 25 new franchisees to keep our booming business growing. We'll back you up with the strongest award-winning marketing program in the industry, and we'll provide the special training and support that's fueled our growth to prepare you for this great opportunity. All that's missing is you. Call Always Best Care toll-free at 1-800-643-7508. That's 1-800-
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Patriot Come Lately Show. Please take what you have learned and share it with friends and family. Better still, tell them about the show so they can listen too. Remember to support the advertisers on the show. It helps keep this show on the air, and I thank you for that. I'm looking forward to joining you on the next show. Until then, keep spreading our message. Goodbye, and God bless America.